Now, don't let the title deceive you into thinking that I don't like Vikram, because if you've seen my review, you would know that that would be far from the truth. Vikram is, I think, a really good movie that is extremely well made and well performed. It is far from perfect and it does suffer from a few flaws. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about my one problem with Vikram, that is the lengthy runtime of certain scenes in the film. And to compare it with another film that executes this problem in such a way that it becomes the film's asset is none other than Quentin Tarantino's 2009 masterpiece, Inglorious Basterds. Spoilers for both films, by the way. There are two primary scenes in Inglorious Basterds where the length of the scene is intentionally long and drawn out. But it works beautifully. In the opening scene, we see the antagonist of the film, Colonel Hans Landa, an officer working for Germany whose primary objective is to round up the Jews left in France upon Hitler's orders. But before we know all this information, Landa is still shown to us as this terrifying presence. He enters the home of a French farmer, supposedly suspecting them of hiding Jews. But we don't know that yet. We just know that the farmer and his family are scared of Landa, and one main thing that makes him scary is how he disguises his power in the form of kindness. He makes you believe that you have control, whereas he's the one in control all along. The farmer, Lapadit, and Landa sit down and talk. Through this conversation, we realize Landa's purpose and why he's here. Now, where the real suspense begins is when it is shown to us that there are Jews hiding underneath the floorboards right below Landa and Lapadit. As Hitchcock said, the audience now has a reason to worry as they have been given information regarding the bomb under the table. The scene now has strong emotional stakes because we can only imagine the horrors that Landa would inflict on the Jews. But the fact that he doesn't know it, at least not yet, is what makes the scene suspenseful. Tarantino uses this to his advantage to purposely stretch the scene.
It's like the suspense is a rubber band, and I'm just stretching it and stretching it and stretching and see how far it can stretch. As long as that rubber band can stretch, the longer the scene can hold, the more suspenseful it is.
Just when you think the farmer might get away with it, Landa doesn't leave. Instead, he extends his visit, only drawing out the suspense. And after we've been occupied in this dreadful tension, it finally concludes when Landa figures out the truth Lapadit had been hiding from him, and without a hint of hesitation, orders the German soldiers to mercilessly fire upon the Jews hiding below. Even in the famous tavern basement sequence, this form of storytelling is utilized effectively. Few of the bastards have disguised themselves as German officers, and a slightly faulty accent of one of the bastards is picked up by the antagonist of that scene, Major Hellstrom, another German officer. He then begins to talk and get to know the bastards and slowly also starts to play a game with them. The scene here too is extremely drawn out and lengthy, as instead of getting straight to the point, Hellstrom decides to play with the bastards and keep the charade going on until he can really figure out what's wrong. And it eventually culminates when Hellstrom's suspicion is confirmed to be true as he sees Michael Fassbender's character holding up the number 3 in the incorrect way, climaxing in a bloody battle of bullets leading to almost everyone's death. Both of these scenes manage to draw out and lengthen the runtime of the scene perfectly, as they use this to add tension and suspense by taking its time slowly to reveal certain bits and pieces of information to the audience, as we are made to carefully figure things out on our own. Now let's look at Vikram. Two scenes to be specific. One scene I would like to look at is Vikram's final conversation with the antagonist of the film, Sandhanam. Sandhanam was responsible for murdering Vikram's son, which is basically what sends the man out on a mission of revenge, somewhat. Vikram gives Sandhanam a speech about how he's the lion of the jungle, and it works. It works pretty well. It's a commercial movie, and Kamal Hassan is the one delivering the dialogue. But right after this, where it would have been a good time for Vikram to deliver his final monologue to Sandhanam before finally avenging his family, the scene keeps on going on and on and on with no point whatsoever. Sandhanam tries to strike a deal with Vikram, but this eventually backfires on him. But the problem is Sandhanam would have died anyway. So the creative decision to add that scene after what would have been a great time to end it was just jarring to me. They could have ended it on a stronger note, but the unnecessary padded runtime of the scene just injured it for me. Similarly, throughout the entire film, the main villain, the bosses of all the bad guys, Rolex, was being set up since the beginning. We were already aware of his terrifying presence, as even the ruthless Sandram feared Rolex. And in the climax of the film, we finally get to see the man in flesh and blood, played by none other than Surya. And the way the filmmaking effectively hides us from completely seeing Rolex is brilliant. We see him step out of his vehicle and sit down as all of his men inform him regarding the events of the movie. And when we cut to Rolex, we briefly see an eye and other specific features. But when he decides to behead one of his own men, that is when the true reveal happens, as we see a chaotically insane Rolex laughing maniacally covered by the blood of one of his men. This would have been the perfect time to end the movie. We had seen the antagonist of the sequel just enough to give us an idea of what he is like, while also holding back to maintain excitement for Vikram too. But instead, the scene keeps on going and going and going. Rolex goes from being silent to talkative non-stop, screaming to assert power, and that's fine, but I feel like by showing how little he speaks and by showing less of him, he would have a much more interesting character, I feel. Even the short choices feel like they have lost a sense of purpose, as the scene had lost any real suspense at this point. Don't get me wrong, I love Surya, and I too am looking forward to the sequel, but I wish I had seen a little less of Rolex, as I think it would have served the narrative much better. Now, the real reasons for these four scenes I talked about being lengthy are different. In Inglorious, it works because there are characters hiding secrets and they are put in situations where they might get caught. Whereas in Vikram, the problem lies in the scenes continuing aimlessly when they had already achieved their intended purpose. So, yeah, this is my one problem with Vikram. Don't get me wrong, again, I really like the movie, but this is something that bothered me quite a bit. Thank you so much for watching. Please do comment below. I would love to talk about these films with you guys. Have a great day. See you in the next video.